Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to allow everybody to join. Welcome to the Children and Pets Survey 2025. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. See lots of people joining us now. Just going to give it a couple more minutes just to allow everybody to join, and then we'll make a start. Hi to everybody new joining us. We're just giving it one more minute just to allow a few more people to join, and then we'll make a start. Right, hello, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to share with you the findings of the Pet Education Partnership's first ever nationally representative Children and Pets Survey, commissioned by Pet Education Partnership, or as we refer to it, PEP, and carried out by YouGov in late 2024. This presentation is more than just numbers. It's also about the stories that it tells and the potential that we reveal. We're going to explore how young people across the UK relate to animals in their lives and what shapes their behaviour, their empathy, and their understanding. But before we get started, I'd just like to introduce you to today's panel. So I'm Anna Baggett, I'm Education Lead at PDSA.
I'm Beth Greenwood from Dogs Trust, and I lead on the National Dog Survey.
I'm Shelley Brown, and I'm Head of Education at Cats Protection.
So you'll be hearing a lot from us over the next 30, 40 minutes or so, and then we're going to have an opportunity for questions and discussion. Before we do get started, just a couple of bits of housekeeping. So we are recording the webinar just for those people that weren't able to join us today. So you may have noticed that your microphone and your camera has been disabled, but we do encourage people to write questions in the Q&A box or the chat, and we will have time to answer some of these questions at the end of the session. So first, let's begin with the reason why we commissioned this research. As professionals working in education or animal welfare, or even as parents, you may have already have some expectations about how children perceive and treat animals. But what's striking is just how little solid data that we actually have about this group. We realised that there was a gap in literature around children's behaviours, knowledge, and attitudes towards pets, especially in those aged between 7 and 11. And historically, most education programmes rely on assumptions of what we think the children need to know. With this survey, we aim to generate evidence-based insights that would help us better serve our audiences and ultimately the pets and the people in their lives.
So, who are we? The Pet Education Partnership is a unique collaboration between 8 of the UK's leading animal welfare organisations, and that includes Blue Cross, Cats Protection, Dogs Trust, PDSA, RSPCA, Scottish SPCA, USPCA, and Wood Green. And together we're working to make animal welfare education accessible to every 5 to 11-year-old across the UK. So we came together around a shared vision to inspire lifelong compassion for animals and to provide accessible animal welfare education to every child aged between 5 and 11 in the UK. We are united in our commitment and believe that through collaboration, we can go further than we ever could alone.
So I'll just kick off with how the survey was actually conducted. So we worked with YouGov to gain a nationally representative sample of children aged 7 to 11 from across all of the UK. We surveyed 1,024 children between the 7th and 29th of November 2024. The sample was representative of the UK's children in terms of gender, age, region, and social background. And as you can see on this next slide, YouGov's stratified panel sampling enabled balanced representation across age groups and genders. So most children surveyed lived in England, that was 85%, with the rest from Scotland, 7%, Wales, 4%, and Northern Ireland, 3%. 81% lived in urban areas, 7% lived in town or fringe locations, and about 12% lived in rural settings. Then YouGov also provided data on household income and social deprivation, and that was using the index of multiple deprivation. So an IMD of 1 to 3 means children living in the most deprived locations, while an IMD of 8 to 10 represents the least deprived areas. And this allowed us to analyze important patterns by socioeconomic status.
So let's start with the core question. How many children live with pets? So according to the survey, 65% of children live with at least one pet. Of these, the most common pets were 40% dogs, 29% cats, and this was followed by fish, rabbits, and hamsters. More than 1 in 10 children lived in households with both a cat and a dog. This shows us that most children are growing up with regular, close contact with animals. Interestingly, we also noticed some significant patterns. Children in the southern areas in England, 45%, were more likely to own a dog than those living in northern England at 33%. Children in more deprived areas, so IMD 1 to 3, were more likely to own a dog, 46%, than those living in affluent areas at 38 to 39%. This challenges some of the more common assumptions. It suggests that pet ownership isn't higher in affluent families, it's more equal or more common in lower income communities.
So next up, we're going to look at how we define and teach animal welfare through our programs. So here at the Pet Education Partnership, we base all of our education on the 5 welfare needs, as are outlined in the Animal Welfare Act of 2006. So these needs are both legal requirements, and they're also fundamental ethical principles when caring for any animal. So that includes farm animals as well as pets. So the 5 welfare needs include a suitable environment or home. So that means clean, safe, and comfortable. A suitable diet, so the right type of food, and constant access, so 24/7 access to water. Then it's the ability to express normal behavior for that species. For example, things like digging, scratching, and playing. And then we have whether animals should be housed with or apart from other animals, and that depends on the species' social needs. The 5th is protection from pain, suffering, injury, and disease. So that includes veterinary care and regular checkups because animals are quite good at hiding pain. So we need to check up on them regularly. Now, these are widely taught, and rightly so. But here at the Pet Education Partnership, we go one step further. So we believe in the 6th dimension, the mental state. So alongside the 5 needs, we also teach children about an animal's mental state. And this comes from the 5 domains model, which is used by professionals worldwide across the globe to assess not just whether an animal is surviving, but actually whether they're thriving. So we ask children to consider, is this animal happy? Are they relaxed? Are they secure? Are they curious? Or on the other hand, are they frightened? Are they bored? Or are they frustrated? And this mental state is the result of the other 5 needs being met or not. It gives children a bigger emotional framework to understand animal well-being. So why is it that we teach this? Well, adding the mental state to the conversation has 3 main benefits. It can help children build empathy, so not just responsibility. It encourages children to think about pets as individuals with feelings, not just creatures with a to-do list of things that you have to do for them. It also gives teachers and parents a way to link animal care to broader themes, for example, emotional literacy, animal and human rights, respecting boundaries, and well-being. So all of our pet education partnership resources, from classroom activities to our upcoming dog safety animation, are designed to reflect this fuller picture, including mental state. So it's not just what pets need physically, but what helps them feel safe, secure, and emotionally well. And this is especially important when we're teaching about the less expressive animals. So things like reptiles, fish, or small mammals, where discomfort or stress can be a bit harder to spot. So when we talk about the five welfare needs, we're also inviting children to look a little deeper. So not just asking, is my pet okay? But really, is my pet happy? And that's a really, really powerful shift in their mindset. So in order to address children's awareness of these welfare needs, we asked children how important it is that pets receive certain care. So this included things like a clean and safe place to live, the right food and clean water, opportunities for exercise and play, regular vet checkups, and things like feeling happy and relaxed. And really, the results were quite heartening. So the majority of children rated all 9 listed pet welfare needs as at least somewhat important. On the graph on the slide, the dark blue means very important, and the bright blue means somewhat important. So the most commonly recognized needs amongst children were a safe and comfortable place to live, with 95% agreeing it was at least somewhat important. So that's really fantastic. And then the next step was the right type of food and clean water, with 93% agreeing it was at least somewhat important. And then even the least selective welfare needs, such as the choice to have animal company, 85% still showed that there was high concern. However, these answers weren't split equally across all children. We found that children who live with pets were consistently more likely to view each welfare need as important, as were girls and children from higher income households. For example, 92% of children from households earning over £50,000 per year rated exercise as important. And this is compared to only 83% from households that earn less than £25,000 per year. And the same trend appeared around emotional well-being as well. So this hints that exposure to pets and the environment that children are raised in might shape how children view animal care.
Now, where do children learn how to care for pets? So we asked them to choose from a list of sources. The top 4, as you'll see on this slide, were parents and carers at 44%, vets at 43%, the internet at 36%, and YouTube at 33%. Just 6% of children said that they don't get any information at all about pet care, which is really encouraging for the sector. But trust, as we know, is slightly different to exposure. So when children were asked who they trust the most, children chose vets at 53%, parents at 40%, and surprisingly, they chose teachers and the internet at just 16% each. This highlights the opportunity for educators and trusted animals to be more present in these conversations. Conversely, children without pets were more likely to trust YouTube or say that they didn't know who to trust. Children were also asked, how would you like to learn about pets in the future? Top answers, again, as you'll see on the slide, were watching videos at 43%, having a pet expert visit their school, 42%, which is what a lot of our charities do, watching TV programs at 38%, and lessons from teachers at 31%. Only 5% of children answered that they weren't interested in learning more about pets. So again, really good figure for us. So the appetite is there. We just need to meet children where they are, both digitally and in schools. Sorry, Shelley, just on mute at the moment.
Thank you. So here's the key question. Do children believe that animals are sentient and have feelings? So 72% believe dogs have feelings, 64% said the same for cats, but only 23% believed that about fish or lizards. And when it came to communication, the same pattern appeared. So children recognized dogs and cats as being more able to communicate than the smaller and less expressive species. And this for us highlights a knowledge gap and a teaching opportunity. Pet-owning children were more likely to believe that their own pet had feelings than that the species in general did. So, for example, 92% of dog owners believed that their dog had feelings, but only 74% said that dogs in general did. So, this could reveal that the power of personal experience is there in shaping beliefs. One of the most striking patterns we observed in the survey was how children's beliefs about whether animals can feel emotions like happiness, sadness, or fear varied depending on where they live. So, children living in urban areas were less likely to believe that animals such as dogs, cats, rabbits, and horses have feelings. And this was also true for children in the most deprived areas. But children living in London and the northwest of England were significantly less likely to believe that species such as cats, dogs, rabbits, hamsters, fish, snakes, and birds had feelings. And on the flip side, children in Yorkshire and Humber and the southwest of England were most likely to believe that a wide range of species, including smaller or less expressive animals, could feel emotions. So understanding sentience is at the heart of helping young audiences develop or understand that empathy and ethical behavior towards animals is really, really important. So, for example, if a child doesn't believe a rabbit or a guinea pig can feel sadness or stress, they're less likely to understand why gentle handling or quiet space is important.
And now on to a bit of good news. So most children showed a strong desire to help animals in distress. 88% of children said that they would like to help an animal that looked unhappy. 90% of children answered that they'd like to help a pet that looked unwell or injured. This empathy was even more pronounced among children who lived with pets. 94% of pet-owning children said that they would want to help an injured pet, compared to 81% of non-pet-owning children. And 67% of pet-owning children strongly agreed that they'd help an unhappy pet, compared to just 42% of non-pet-owning children. There are also notable demographic differences here. So girls were more likely than boys to express a desire to help, with 92% of girls answering that they'd help an unhappy pet, compared to just 86% of boys. Children in rural or town areas were also more likely to agree that they'd help an unhappy pet at 94% than those living in urban areas at 87%, but the percentages are still high. Overall, these findings suggest that the empathy towards animals is widespread among all children, but it is strengthened by direct experience with pets, gender, and environment. This underscores the value of early inclusive animal welfare education, particularly for children with limited pet access, to nurture compassionate behaviour across all contexts.
So sadly, not all child and pet interactions are positive. We found that 2/3 of children had experienced at least one negative interaction, and these include things like a dog jumping up at them, so 29%, being scratched, 27%, or being growled at, 25% of children. And dogs were involved in about 73% of these experiences. So while a lot of these aren't necessarily severe, they are meaningful, and for once we're actually recording them. They shape how children feel around animals. So yeah, very important to find out these things.
And on to bite experiences, that while many children have reported positive interactions with pets, a significant number of children have experienced being bitten, often by familiar animals and in everyday situations. 21% of children said that they'd been bitten by a pet, 10% of those by a pet that they live with, 8% by a family or a friend's pet, and 6% by a stranger's pet. But it is important to note that children could select more than one source for this question. Amongst those bitten specifically by dogs, 63% required medical attention and 7% were hospitalized overnight. Until now, data on pet bites amongst children has focused primarily on severe incidents where they require hospital treatment. This survey provides us with a new, unique insight into the lower level bite experiences and offers a fuller picture of everyday risks that children face when interacting with animals, especially dogs. Bites most often occurred during routine interactions such as playing, feeding, and stroking, highlighting that children may misinterpret or overlook early signs of fear or discomfort within pets. When looking at who was affected the most, children from lower income households were more likely to report bite incidents, and many of the pets were known to the child, either pets that they live with or pets belonging to family or friends. This data confirms what many educators and welfare professionals have long suspected, that minor bites are widespread and underreported. We hope that through early, accessible education, which helps children recognise dog body language, understand behaviour, and respect a dog's space, we can reduce bite incidents and foster safer, more respectful relationships between children and dogs.
Thanks, Anna. So now we're going to have a look at pet care and learning at home. So where do children get their pets in the house? So this is a bit about pester power. So of the 671 pet owners, children reflected on the following species: dog, cats, rabbits, fish, guinea pig, and other. Amongst those pet owners, the children, 36% said that they asked to get their pet or for their pet a lot. 48% said they wanted a friend to play with, and 48% said the pet looked cool or cute. Children in more deprived and urban areas were more likely to ask for pets than those of rural or affluent areas. So amongst those pet owning children, one of the optional activities they could select was dressing up of type of pet. And here's what we found. So 18% of children said that they enjoyed dressing up their pet. And whilst this was less common than other activities, like saying their pet is cute and cool at 70%, playing with their pet at 77%, giving them cuddles at 70%, taking them pictures with them at 46%, it is still concerning, because whilst 18% may seem like a small number, it's not insignificant, and it opens up some important educational conversations. So some pets may tolerate clothing or costumes, while others may find it distressing or restrictive. Children may not always recognize signs of discomfort, like trying to wriggle away, freezing, or hiding. And there is an implication for education here. So it's an opportunity to teach children how to tell if a pet is enjoying the interaction, that consent and comfort apply to animals too, and that cute doesn't always equal kind. Dressing up a pet might seem like harmless or even fun activity, but when they are dressing them up, especially without adult supervision, it's critical that they understand the animal's comfort level. So this is a perfect teaching moment about empathy, boundaries, and the difference between what's fun for us and what's fair for them. And thinking about pet care, so 98% of children with pets said they help with at least one care activity, such as feeding, playing, or cuddling. But let's take a closer look now at how often children are left unsupervised with their pets, especially dogs. So children who owned pets were asked how often they were left alone with their pet without an adult present. 70% of children said they were left alone with their pet at least once a week. 39% said they were left alone with their pet once a day. 31% said once a week or more. And 13% said they were never left alone. And 5% weren't sure. So this means that the majority of children were regularly left unsupervised with their animals, which is especially important when we consider potential risks and what children do or don't know about reading animal behavior. And we can break this down by age and species as well. So children 9 and older were more likely to be left alone at 42% compared to younger children at 34%, And children with cats were more likely to be left alone with them every day, 47%, compared to children with dogs at 36%. So while cats and smaller pets may pose fewer risks, it's crucial to note that dogs were involved in 73% of the negative pet experiences and 44% of reported bites. This suggests a need for increased awareness and education around supervision, especially with dogs. So why does it matter? So as we've said before, children may not always recognize when a dog is feeling anxious, threatened, or overstimulated. Many dog bites occur in family and familiar environments, so often during routine, unsupervised interactions like playing, feeding, or cuddling. Yet more than 1 in 3 children reported being left alone with their dog daily. This for us reinforces the need to teach children how to spot signs of discomfort in dogs, such as moving away, freezing, or growling. Educate adults about when and how to supervise interactions, and provide tools that promote safe, positive relationships between children and dogs. And this part of the data really stood out to us, not because it was surprising, because it does confirm what many professionals in animal welfare and child safety have long suspected. Regular and supervised interactions can be safe, but only if children are properly taught how to read their pet signals and if parents understand when to step in.
Thank you, Shelley. So on to lessons about pets. Children who reported having a pet at home were asked what they had learned about how to behave around their chosen pet. They could select from a list of possible lessons. The most commonly selected lessons were be kind and touch them gently, selected at 74%, give them space when they're sleeping at 57%, and give them space when they're eating at 58%. Only a small proportion of children said they hadn't been taught any of the listed lessons or they didn't know if they had. When comparing across socio-economic backgrounds, children in the lowest income households, so those under 25,000, were less likely to report being taught several of the lessons compared to those in households of over 50,000. For example, 62% from lower income households reported being taught to be kind and touch gently, compared to 79% from higher income households. Children who did not have a pet at home were asked exactly the same question, but framed in a different way. So we asked them about any pet rather than their own. Their responses were consistently lower across all lesson types. So, for example, to be kind and touch them gently, 59% of non-pet owners versus 74% of pet owners. Give them space when they're eating, with non-pet owning children came out at 38% as opposed to 58% in those owning pets. And give them space when they're sleeping was just 34% in comparison to those owning pets at 57%. This suggests that direct experience with pets is linked to greater exposure to guidance on respectful and safe interactions.
So lastly, we wanted to know how children recognize when a pet is feeling uncomfortable. So the children who lived with pets were asked how they know if their pet doesn't like what they're doing. And they were provided with a list of behaviors and asked to choose as many options as they thought were applicable to their specific named pet. So we found that 54% said that they know their pet doesn't like what they're doing when their pet moves away. And 53% said that they know their pet doesn't like it when they wriggle to escape. Now, this was more common among cat and rabbit owners. So 61% of cat owning children said this about their cat. Only about 5% of children said that their pet always likes what they're doing. And so while this shows a decent awareness, because over half of children recognize their pets asking for more space, there's also much more room to deepen their understanding, especially of species-specific animal communication and body language, and the way that children interact with their pets so that they can avoid creating discomfort for them. So what have we learned from all of this? Well, it's clear that children do care deeply about their animals, but the understanding does vary. Experience matters, so children with pets are more empathetic and informed. And girls and children from wealthier and non-urban households tend to have more awareness. So there's clear opportunities to improve education, especially for non-pet owners and in deprived areas. Now, this survey is going to be repeated every 2 years, so it will help us track change over time and refine our programs. So we invite you, educators, charities, and community leaders to use this data and all of our free resources so that you can better connect with children on animal welfare. You can download full lesson plans, activities, and loads more, which Anna's going to tell you about next.
Thank you, Beth. So just before we get on to sharing those links, we'll just go through some of the key points and tell you a bit about what we've got coming up. So one of the most important themes that's come out from our findings was around safety and children's interactions with dogs. So just to quickly recap some of those main points, that nearly 3/4 of children reported experiencing a negative interaction with a pet, and most of these were with a dog. 1 in 5 children reported being bitten by a pet, and for 44% of those children, the animal was a dog. Of those bitten, 63% saw a doctor and 7% required hospitalisation. 70% of pet-owning children are left unsupervised with their pet on a regular basis, and over 1/3 are left alone with them daily. So what these statistics tell us is that routine interactions, even with a family dog, can sometimes go a bit wrong. We knew we couldn't just report on this and walk away, so we've already taken direct action at PEP. We've developed a dog safety webinar designed to help young learners to understand how to stay safe around dogs at home and in public, what to do and what not to do if a dog seems uncomfortable, scared, or overstimulated. And this is especially vital in households where dogs are left alone with children, or where dogs may be misunderstood or always seen as playful or tolerant. In addition to the webinar, we've created a child-friendly animation, and this teaches children how to interact with dogs safely, whether it's on their own, with a friend, or a stranger's dog. The importance of giving dogs space, especially when they're eating or resting. And this animation, which will be launched later this month on the 17th of June, will be age appropriate, engaging, and grounded in the exact findings from our survey. So as we said, we've got a few links for you here. So on our Pet Education Partnership website, we've got lots of free resources that you can download. And we've also got information about our free webinar that you can go to on our Eventbrite page as well, or just contact us if you've got anything that you want to ask. So we have got a Q&A box and a chat box, so I'm just going to stop sharing my screen now, and we have got some time to answer any questions that you have. I could already see things coming through to the chat, which is brilliant. So if you have any questions, please submit them via the chat or the Q&A box. So I've just got a question for Beth here. So how were children aged between 7 to 11 selected and surveyed through YouGov?
So yeah, as you said, we worked with YouGov. So they are a research company who hold their own huge panel of millions of UK adults. And when they recruit people to their panel, they're able to collect lots of their socio-demographic data. So then from that panel of millions of UK adults, YouGov were able to select any adults who had children aged 7 to 11. And then they stratified that based on the nationally representative demographics of age, gender, region, and socioeconomic factors such as social class and education. So it was actually the adults who were invited to the survey. And so then they would fill out a few questions at the start. So just to be able to answer whether they had any pets, how many pets, and to confirm with their child which pet it was that their child was going to be answering about. And then it was up to their child to answer the questions about the pet. So I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Beth. Lots of questions coming in now. Did we say last night that there's an event coming up in Northern Ireland? Yes, we did. So we've got our Staying Safe Around Dogs webinar, which will be on the 17th and the 19th of June, which is for Northern Ireland and Scotland. And then we've got the event also taking place in July on the 17th and 18th, I believe, of July, for the England and Wales schools. So it's free to join, so just on our Eventbrite page. Brilliant. Also a question, is there any comparable data for adults? One key takeaway for me was that children have better awareness and knowledge than we give them credit for. Absolutely. Beth, did you want to take that one?
Yeah, so as far as I'm aware, there haven't been any sort of landmark studies looking at adults' awareness across all of the different pet species. However, there are a few surveys, for example, the National Dog Survey, which I work on, which looks at people's awareness of dog body language specifically. And I'm sure that there's a lot of other surveys that have been done on particular pets. But yeah, it would be really great to bring all of it together to be able to assess adults' awareness of animal sentience and awareness across all different species.
I think we're also really lucky to have PDSA's paw report data that we can compare to as well. Emma Tipton, who does a lot of our statistical analysis on our PDSA paw report, has been involved in this project for the Pet Education Partnership as well. So we do have access to a lot of data with adults that we'd really like to compare.
Yeah, and likewise with cats protection as well. We've worked with our insights team and other colleagues to get the questions right and make sure that they include information that we want to know. There's one, it might be one for you, Becky. So why was the number surveyed so low in Wales? Also, does number include both south and north regions of Wales?
Yeah, so because it was nationally representative for the UK, obviously England has a much higher population density, so that's why there was sort of 81% of respondents were from England. So in future years, we would, funding dependent, love to up the overall sample size. So then the proportion would still stay the same to be nationally representative, but it would mean that we would potentially have 10,000 instead of 1,000 UK children sampled. So that would give us much better power to be able to say exactly what's going on in Wales. But yeah, thanks so much for the question. It is something that we'd really love to do in the future.
And again, fund independent in the 2027 survey, we would like to do focus groups as well. So that will enable us to focus on key areas as well that we'd like to reach. But it's all funding dependent, unfortunately. We've got a question in the Q&A box here. So there's a high percentage of children showing empathy by wanting to help their pets if in discomfort, but did we ask how they would help? I think it's quite worrying that a high percent of children want to help. I'm assuming that things like the following, cuddling, etc. Is there going to be a focus on educating how to respond to all signs of discomfort?
I
Yeah,
think,
so
sorry, you go, Beth.
that's all right. I was going to just respond in terms of what we asked in the survey. So we didn't ask in the survey how they would respond, although that is a really good point. So as Anna said before, we'd love to do focus groups with children and their parents to kind of understand a bit more in depth with qualitative interviews on how children maybe think that they would be able to help. And then from there, we would be able to develop future questions for 2027 survey to be able to understand this more quantitatively. And then, yeah, Shelley, I don't know if you were going to talk about what we advocate for in terms of being able to give animals space and move away and that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah, I was just going to say that our sessions that we've developed so far are very much sort of focused on helping younger audiences understand sort of specific behavior. And even though, you know, focusing on signs of discomfort in the way that you've mentioned it in your question isn't a focus as yet, it could be in the future. We're looking doing something around sort of October time, aren't we? Around all sort of the celebrations and stuff that go on around that time of year that could cause potential discomfort to animals. So that's something to watch out for later in the year, I would say.
Thank you, Shelley. Still some time if you want to ask any more questions, just pop them in either the chat box or the Q&A is absolutely fine. So again, just if you want to put any questions in, we've got a few more coming in now that we'll just respond to. Um, got some similar questions coming through. We've got what age is appropriate for children to be left unsupervised with pets, especially dogs? So I think I'll start by saying it's simply not about age, it's about education. So specifically, a child needs to be able to understand and respect the animal's boundaries, which obviously we've spoken about, recognize signs of fear, stress, discomfort in the animals, respond calmly or appropriately if and when the pets show the warning behaviors that we teach, and avoid risky behaviors like hugging, poking, disturbing while eating and sleeping that we talked about. Even older children may lack the judgment to manage unpredictable behavior. So again, it's just not particularly about age. Any age needs to be able to read the subtle body language cues, especially in unfamiliar animals. Rather than setting a hard age limit, I think I'd speak for everyone where we say we definitely advocate around individual risk assessment and that ongoing adult presence in early interventions. Our upcoming animation teaches that there must always be an adult present when the child is with a dog, for example. For families or communities where adult supervision might be limited, our education work is even more vital. So that's why Pet Education Partnership and all the partners involved in PEP focus on teaching children what animals need, how to read the signals, and when they need to step away. Anybody's got anybody to add on that? Oh.
No, I was just going to say there's one in the chat that I'm happy to answer. So it's from an educational speaker who is a volunteer at Cats Protection. Hello. And they have said, I have a set script I'm expected to use. Will that be amended to include some of those key points from this research? Well, what I would say is hopefully what you'll know is at the moment we're doing a review of our education work, and really thinking about the content sort of what our talks might look like in the future. So I'm hopeful, really hopeful that we will include this. One thing I will say is that across the Pet Education Partnership, one of the main aims for us is to ensure sort of consistency of the messaging and language that we're trying to get out there. And I certainly know that's really sort of happened, hasn't it, in regards to dog bites and how we talk about being safe around dogs. And it's definitely something that we'd want to look at for cats as well.
We have consistent language at the Pet Education Partnership as well. So everything that we try to do in our own programs, we try and reflect as much as possible across. And once we've got our animation at the end of June, we'd love for everybody to share it as well, and have that consistency across the sector. Just seen another one pop up. So we got, are there any resources aimed to support neurodiverse children and parents being developed? Also, children that have speech and language difficulties.
Well, I think we try and make our resources and our sessions as inclusive as we can for everyone. And because a lot of them are teacher directed resources as well, we will provide key points for the teachers to be able to use. They will know their classes better than anyone, so we try and make them as adaptable as they can be. I don't know if anyone else has got anything that they want to add to that.
Just going to say that we're committed to making everything accessible and available to children, all children. So we make sure that any videos that we've got upcoming have got subtitles. We also have everything translated into the Welsh language as well to be inclusive for Wales. So any time that we can possibly do anything that would allow all children to access it, we do. Just wait a bit to see if anybody else has got any more questions. Oh, we've got a very, very long comment.
This looks great.
Oh, thank you. If anybody has got any details that they'd like to share and they'd like us to get in touch with you specifically, please drop them in the chat. And we'll make sure that we pick this up following the event. Thank you for the comment that we've just had through the chat from the Links group. And of course, we're really involved at the Links group across a lot of our partner charities at the Pet Education Partnership. So we'll certainly be in touch. Thank you.
Well, there's another one here. So, what activities can help non-pet owning children build similar empathy?
I think it's just about that as much exposure to animals as possible, isn't it? In different ways, trips out to be able to have exposure to animals, using our pet resources as much as possible. One of the things that we've used at PDSA where we've not been able to have animals present, is by having for real animals, the like robotic animals, to be able to give them that access to be able to do it. But I mean, at Pet Education Partnership, we make sure that our resources are tailored to both pet owning and non-pet owning children. So we try and make sure that there's learning for both, really, don't we? Everything that we do, Shelley, just making sure that children can put themselves in the mindset of animals, to be more empathetic people, whether they've got a pet or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's the development of pro-social behaviors in all children, regardless of whether they're pet owners or not. They're going to come across pets and animals at some point in their life. And it doesn't teach them just how to be kind to animals. It's about being kind to each other as well, and showing each other respect and respecting people's boundaries. So yeah, it's, there's something in it for everyone.
Yeah. Well, if we
Brilliant.
haven't got any more questions coming in now, I think, oh, we have. Sorry. Yeah, we absolutely agree with you that role-playing, storytelling, scenario, and animations bring it all to life. And hopefully our upcoming animation will help with that as well, with our fun story of Sam and his dog Teddy. So we really look forward to sharing that with all of you. Um, so I think if we wrap up then, if we've got no more questions coming in, of course, if you do have any more questions, then please feel free to contact us at peteducationpartnership.org, and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. But thank you so much for joining us for this event. We will make sure that the recording is shared via email as soon as we have it. And we will also share some links for our upcoming webinars as and when they're available. So thank you ever so much for joining us, and take care. Thanks.